This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Everybody, welcome to the current state of WWE. It is Monday, January 22nd, 2024, as it is Rumble Week. A lot is going to be decided this week. So many answers, but so many questions that will still linger even after the Rumble winners are presented this Saturday night. Of course, we now even have the World Heavyweight Championship that's in jeopardy. Is Seth going to relinquish tonight on Monday Night Raw? We don't know yet. Is he going to be out temporarily just in time for Mania? That seems to be where most people are landing, but we'll dive into that in just a minute. But Anthony, welcome to the show. It's great to be back together. How you doing?
Not too bad, man. Obviously, we missed a week because of you gallivanting in the South. Yes, I hope you're feeling better, but I hope it was a good time.
Yeah, it was. Not only was the travel horrific, it sounds like I'm complaining going to Cancun, but honestly, it was a lot more stressful than it was relaxing. And then I brought something back with me that I'm just today getting over. So yeah, but all is well. It's now Rumble Week.
Yeah, and how crazy things kind of progressed here. Like, obviously, we had the two half kind of pay-per-views with New Year's Revolution and day one branded versions of SmackDown and Raw, respectively. But, it's been almost 2 months since the last pay-per-view, and I still think, and I think that you're with me here, that they should have an official pay-per-view between Survivor Series and Royal Rumble. But it's crazy how good the product is, made it progress so fast, and in a blink of an eye, we're already at Rumble.
Yeah, I mean, those two little stopgaps did make the whole time between Survivor Series, which feels like a lifetime ago, until the Rumble this Saturday, make it feel a whole lot better. But you're right. It just proved that you don't need to half-ass these kind of little mini PLEs or Raw Plus or SmackDown Plus. Just do a damn PLE. You could have made what they put on both of those cards. You could have easily made a PLE out of it, and it's more money for them. I don't know what they're thinking of not doing that. You brought The Rock back. All these things. So yeah, it doesn't. To me, it's a no-brainer that they need a stopgap PLE in between Survivor Series and, of course, the Royal Rumble. Yes,
and it doesn't even have to be a major one, because even when it was Armageddon or TLC or Day One or whatever, there usually weren't major title changes except for when Brock won the WWE Championship 2 years ago. But I still think it is good to give a bit of a buffer, and I guess we could kind of start with the World Heavyweight Championship and how many times he's defended it on Monday Night Raw since Survivor Series. And now, is he going to be injured? Where's the direction of that? So, I guess I'll ask you flat out, if Seth is injured and can't hold it all the way to Mania, where do you think they go with the direction for it?
Well, I would imagine that it's going to be competed for inside Elimination Chamber or a tournament leading to Chamber, something like that. Some people have said, well, you should defend it inside of the Royal Rumble. And I don't like that, because then you're bringing in SmackDown stars that are also in the Rumble. It kind of muddies the waters of the person who wins it. Well, the person who wins it is destined for Roman Reigns. It's not destined for the World Heavyweight Championship. I'm not a big fan of having the world title being the determining factor of the Royal Rumble winner. It's a bit of a diversion I don't need. And so I think that they would have it be competed for inside of Elimination Chamber, or the number one contender would be in the Elimination Chamber, and then you'd have the person who actually wins it on a tournament outside on Monday Night Raw. And that's probably how I would do it. I wouldn't wait till WrestleMania to crown a new World Heavyweight Champion. I mean, that's just way too far. I mean, you're talking about 3.5 months. So that's probably how I would do it. What about you?
Yeah, I think so. And, I think we're in the same boat where we both feel that probably Drew McIntyre should be the World Heavyweight Champion right now. And that's no slight against Seth Rollins. I am somewhat over his run, but he's still doing a very good job legitimizing that new World Championship. But like we've said with Roman Reigns, the same applies to Monday Night Raw and the World Heavyweight title, where they have enough main event level talent where they don't need to keep a title on one guy, kind of holding on for dear life. As good as Seth Rollins is, and as much as he means to that world title and the main event scene on Monday Night Raw, they don't have to keep him there. Like, if he is really injured, they could afford to, let him take some time off and recuperate. And that's nothing to do with Seth Rollins. He's been awesome. It's more of a testament to how good of a talent roster they have right now. So I wouldn't just keep it on him in like hopes to try and get him back. If he's really hurt, they have more than enough talent to really more than tread water and really blossom going into WrestleMania.
It would just be a bummer that we don't get, if this, again, the worst case scenario of Seth truly being injured, rehab's not an option. He's not going to make WrestleMania. It will be a big disappointment that we don't get Punk and Rollins. I mean, because that's been a program that's been building really back for years with promos that Seth has cut on Punk before he was in AEW. So this goes back quite a ways and has been building for quite some time. And I think there is some legitimate heat. Of course, I think most of it's a work, but you do have real heat, I think, which makes it fun. And I believe that this is a big disappointment if it doesn't happen. Now, if it doesn't happen, how do you navigate CM Punk into the Royal Rumble and having him win or not win, or does he win the Chamber, and who does he face at WrestleMania? So how would you navigate that in terms of CM Punk, who is, all but expected to face Seth Rollins for the world title at WrestleMania? What do you do with Punk?
I mean, I guess like it really depends where they're going with Cody Rhodes, right? Because you could just pivot and do Cody versus Punk because of their history back in AEW. And we know that they're promoting the face-to-face between the two of them tonight. But I would probably still have Punk as the challenger for the world title and have him go up against Drew McIntyre. Like, I know you're in the same boat with me as Drew McIntyre, but I really hope that they just don't, assuming that Seth Rollins is in the picture, I really hope that they're not planning to just push Drew McIntyre aside going into WrestleMania, because in my opinion, he is the most interesting character they have right now. He's straddling the fence between a babyface and a heel. There's so much nuance to his character. So for me, if Rollins can't go, I would have him go in as World Heavyweight Champion and defend it against CM Punk. And to be honest, I would want him to be World Champion regardless of Rollins being healthy or not.
And honestly, if that happens, I don't know if I'd want Punk to win at WrestleMania. I kind of like the Drew run that we've all in our minds thought it was all a foregone conclusion, and yet it still hasn't materialized. But the injury potentially to Seth could make it a reality where Drew goes in as a heel, which is a better story almost always with a champion heel going into WrestleMania than it is for a babyface. But I think that's probably where you go. I've heard rumblings, even top podcasters that are saying, hey, if Seth is actually gone through WrestleMania season, bring in somebody like a Stone Cold Steve Austin to face CM Punk. And it's like, I mean, as much as the kid in myself wants to see that match, is it really the best option for CM Punk, given that he wouldn't be in a world title? Yes, it would be Stone Cold Steve Austin, but maybe that match doesn't deliver in the way that we always thought it could back when it was started in 2K15 or 2K12 or whatever it was at the time.
Quite a while ago now.
It's over 10 years. So I think that, sure, it'd be a fun fantasy match, but I mean, would you do something with Punk like that? Even just divert him away from the title picture and have him do some kind of nostalgic throwback match with a John Cena or a Stone Cold Steve Austin?
I wouldn't personally. And to be honest, I know they're playing the long game with Punk, but like the fact of how little he's been on TV and how he hasn't really sunk his teeth into a program yet has kind of annoyed me a bit. It seems very kind of Bray Wyatt-esque. Like, remember when they brought Bray Wyatt back and they just treaded water for so long? It feels like that, but at least Punk, when he comes out, he's not speaking gobbledygook. But we kind of know where Punk is going, but I've still been a little disappointed that all he's really done is have random kind of promos with, well, maybe not with Seth, but with whether it was Judgment Day or Drew McIntyre, and it's always good, but like, I found it weird how slow that they've really brought him along. And I think if you just put him in like an exhibition match, for lack of better words, with like a John Cena or Stone Cold Steve Austin, you just still continuing to be pushing him in kind of like just like a specialty act. And he is that in some way, but like, I think he should be more than that. I think people want to see him in a legit program, not just showing up every 2-3 weeks and having a program with a big name guy, or a promo rather with a big name guy. So no, I would want to see him in something that would have some consequential impacts beyond WrestleMania.
That's where I'm landing too, unbelievably. As much as I want to see Austin, and he can still come out and just give somebody a random stunner and I'll be fine with it. But just for long-term sacrifice, I think it is a better move for Punk, a better move for the World Heavyweight Championship if Seth Rollins isn't there, to have him face Drew McIntyre for the world title. And if they want to have him trample Drew McIntyre, win the belt, fine. But it is a better move, I think, strategically long-term. Now, the more likely scenario, and the one that I think that has been kind of settled on over the last few days about Seth Rollins' injury, is that it's not as serious as they thought as far as him being out completely. He did tear his MCL and partial meniscus, but it's not as bad as your ACL. So there's that. And they feel that it could be just with rest of 4 to 6 weeks, no activity, and just healing, he will be ready in time for WrestleMania. So if that's the case, then I don't know if it really changes the outcome here. It's still probably going to be Punk and Rollins. Have you heard those same reports?
Well, I don't know who to believe anymore, really, on this, but I think that because he's addressing it on Monday Night Raw to open the show, I believe, it lends itself to maybe not being too serious. And I think it's arguably maybe a good thing that he's going to take some time off, because I think with Seth Rollins, I know he's trying to be the antithesis to what Roman Reigns is as a champion, but I think it was starting to have like an opposite effect, like too much of a good thing. Like, why can't we just find a common middle ground, like the best of both worlds? And I think that, as weird as it is to say, I don't think he's defending the title at Royal Rumble this upcoming Saturday. And I think it's probably a good thing, because it felt like it was too much of the World Heavyweight Championship. And I would prefer he just defended the world title at Royal Rumble against a Drew McIntyre or Jinder Mahal. But if it just is a few weeks where we don't have him just handing out title opportunities like candy on Halloween, I think it's a good thing, and we'll give everyone a chance to decompress a bit. Like, even Gunther missing 2-3 weeks over the holidays, I thought was good. Like, not to go to the full Roman Reigns extent, but I think champions missing time here and there isn't always a bad thing.
It's not. And I think right now the Royal Rumble is about the Royal Rumble matches themselves. So I don't think it's that big of a deal that he wasn't going to defend and probably isn't now, defending his world title at the Royal Rumble. This to me is about the matches and about who's going to be in the main event of WrestleMania, not really about defending the world title. So oddly enough, even though this is one of the biggest events of the year, I don't feel like I'm missing out. I don't feel like we're being screwed because we're not getting a world title match at the Royal Rumble. I actually kind of prefer it in a weird way. Also, ironically, with how much we were told over the last 7 months that Seth Rollins' back is hanging on by a thread, it's his knee that gives out on one whimsical, lion salt. Is where it appeared to be, happened. So it's just kind of, I almost want to laugh because of how much we're told Seth Rollins' back is just this close to being, snapped, and he's being paralyzed for the rest of his life, and then his knee gives out. I mean, it's just, I feel kind of like a jerk, but it is kind of, I don't know if ironic's the word, but strange the way that has happened. And this has happened before to Seth. Of course, this was, I think, in a match with Sheamus like 10 years ago before WrestleMania, when he injured it at a house show, of course, more severely. But Seth seems to, I don't know if it's a pattern yet, but this has happened before to Seth.
Well, he injured it leading up to his match with Triple H at WrestleMania 33, I think it was, where Samoa Joe attacked him, and when he went down to give him the rear naked choke, like, he bent his knee off.
That's right.
And he came out with the crutch after it. He dropped it. But, like, Seth works a very high-risk style. Like, we've always said that. And even for his opponents earlier on in his career, when he injured, I think it was Sting, or Finn Balor as well. And he's suffered several injuries, relatively serious ones. His first world title reign was cut short because of an injury that he had to relinquish the title like 8 months into his run. And I think that maybe this is, from a long-term perspective, a good thing, that maybe he realizes he doesn't have to wrestle so much all the time. Like, he's already defended the title how many times? Like 40 times this year. Like, he doesn't have to make it so, like, available. And I know that they're trying to do like an overcorrection to what we're seeing with Roman, but now you're seeing the flip side of it, of having so many title defenses and so many matches and high risk matches, because we know the way Seth works and his style, the risks and some of the consequences that could come with that.
And it's, I think, a warning shot from his body of, hey, slow the hell down. I think it is his body telling him, like, can we truly take a break here? And I think, like you said, it could be a blessing in disguise. If it is temporary, we still get the match we all want with Punk and Rollins. Rollins can still, by the way, cut promos. His voice isn't broken, so he can still kind of be a presence here and there, even if he's off for a month or two. So there is that. They can cut promos very well against one another, two professionals. I'm not worried about that. And it'd be nice not to see Seth Rollins. Honestly, he is on Raw too much. And I know that it sounds like, oh, you asked for somebody who's never there to be there, and then you get somebody who's there and they're there too much. No, it's just like you said, it's a happy medium that we have not seen in a while. We all know what that happy medium is when we see it. Neither Seth or Roman is that. They are polar opposites. We need somebody who's just there, maybe 2 out of 3 Raws, 3 out of 4 Raws, defends their belt at every PLE, just like we used to in the past. Nobody complained about it. Heels did it. Babyfaces did it. It's just the way of the world. No one had an issue, and suddenly we have to do extremes to balance. And yet seeing the extremes doesn't really balance it because there's nothing in the middle. But that said, I do want to move on to the whole... I know that it's the Cody Rhodes factor here, and we get into this every time, but now that the Royal Rumble's here and Roman Reigns is slated to face 3 other guys in the Fatal 4-Way come Saturday night, there is a heavy favorite of Roman still retaining. But I mean, I know you and I have predicted or hoped that Randy Orton would be the one to take it off Roman. It makes the most sense for, I think, a lot of reasons if The Rock comes back, because The Rock's still floating out there. So I don't know. I haven't talked to you in a couple weeks. Do you have any updated thoughts on if Cody should still win the Rumble, if Roman should still drop his belt at the Rumble? Where does The Rock fit in? Have you changed anything?
Well, I kept saying that I thought LA Knight was going to win the Rumble and go to Raw. That dream is dead now. I think Cody will win it, unfortunately. He probably should win it. I mean, it's kind of the point with Roman Reigns, like where we were with Roman Reigns like 4 or 5 years ago, where it's just like, if you're going to force him as the face of the company and then just put the title on him, you might as well. Kind of like when Roman Reigns was like always shoved down our throats, but he wasn't the champion. And they're just like, oh, well, he's not champion. What are you mad about? I feel like we're there with Cody Rhodes. So he should win it, be the first back-to-back winner since Steve Austin 25 years ago or however long it was.
Yep.
And I do still think that Randy Orton's going to walk out. I don't know, like, it's weird to say that, and I don't know why I'm so convinced. I think that they're leaning into it now. Like, you saw Randy, the last man standing of the 4 this week, including of Roman Reigns. Now they're starting to allude to the fact more and more that Roman Reigns isn't there. I think you're seeing how much talent there is on SmackDown. This was a star-studded SmackDown. When all the actual roster is there, that's a very a star-studded roster. And that was without Charlotte Flair because of injury and Bianca Belair not even there. So I think that they realize what they have at their disposal now. And Randy Orton getting one last legit run as WWE champion, his last 2 runs in 2020 and 2017 were very disappointing. One last run, going up against Cody Rhodes, finishing the story against Randy Orton makes all the sense of the world. Cody's the one that brought Randy back after an 18-month hiatus. I think that they should see what they have at their disposal at the tip of their fingers, and they see that they could do The Rock versus Roman non-title, have basically 2 major matches. I think that they're still going to pull the trigger on it.
I'm tending to still be in that camp. I thought I would change my mind, and I'm not. In fact, it's been reinforced even further with the fact that Randy Orton would then up his title reign. What is it, 15 to 16? I mean, he's getting up there. He's getting close to John Cena. And then you would also have Randy only have to do the workload of a couple months as champion. You know, with his age and the mileage, you want to elongate his career as long as possible. So having Randy Orton only champion to carry that load, maybe work a few house shows for a short period of time makes total sense. You're not going to have Randy at this point, I don't think, especially before WrestleMania, go on like a 6-month run as champion. He's capable of it, but at his age and in mileage, it's just he has an advanced risk. He just does. So I have no issue with this at all. Cody wants to win the belt there. That's fine. I know people want Cody, Roman, part 2, and people want Roman, they don't want Randy, but Randy provides as good of a story, if not better. I mean, when you look at the history of them, they will cut awesome promos. There's a ton of footage that they could pull from the past. It would be a lot of fun to watch. They'd work excellent. I mean, the match quality may arguably be even better than Roman and Cody Rhodes in some respects. So I have no issue with that as well. And then of course we get the mega match with no title, as it should be, as we've talked about for literally years now, of Rock Roman, no belt. Now the question to you is, do you think, this is kind of turning into a quasi prediction show, but do you think that the Rock shows up at the Rumble? Is he the reason that Roman is dropping the belt, or does he show up afterwards, or does he not show up at all?
I think he will show up. I mean, this is the unofficial start to WrestleMania season, the road to WrestleMania. I think we know that The Rock is going to play a big role leading into WrestleMania and at WrestleMania. And like you've mentioned, it all started with Roman Reigns, 9 years ago at the Royal Rumble. I think it makes a ton of sense. I don't know if he gets directly involved. I think he will be there. I really think that they're trying to gear up to make this road to WrestleMania and ultimately WrestleMania one of the biggest of all time. I think it makes a lot of sense. I really do think that he will show up. I think it's going to be a major pay-per-view, arguably one of the biggest and most consequential pay-per-views we've seen in probably 10 years or so. And this is before we even get to WrestleMania. So yeah, I fully expect The Rock to show up. And he hasn't appeared at a pay-per-view in how many years now? Like, I can't even remember the last time. Maybe it was WrestleMania 32 when he had that 5-second match against Eric Rowan. So I think the time is right for The Rock to make that appearance.
Yeah, that match still pissed me off, just to say that he had a match. I mean, that's just anyway. But yeah, no, I would agree that he probably does as well. I think he comes out and does he directly cost Roman? That would kind of make the most sense, although it probably happens because the bloodline does what they always do and have been doing for 4 years, and that's interfere to help Roman. Rock even,
and it will be no disqualification, right? Because it's a fatal 4-way.
Which, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I still don't get that, but yes, it's by default no DQ, so you don't have to worry about the referee taking a bump. He can see it right in front of him and can't do anything. So I think The Rock will be the equalizer when the bloodline is coming out to help Roman once again retain, and here comes The Rock. I also think that it's going to be very telling where this match lands. If this match is the main event, I mean, I'm saying even over and above the men's Royal Rumble, then I think it's also a massive clue as to who is going to be coming out on top, which could not be Roman Reigns and likely The Rock costing Roman. So I think that's a telltale sign. But traditionally, I believe it has been the Royal Rumble winner, the man who wins the men's Royal Rumble, standing, pointing at the sign, and then that's it, usually.
Not last year, though.
No, well, last year wasn't last year, right? You're right.
Yeah, so, it was because it was the Sami Zayn turn. So I agree with what you're saying. If they're planning something big for this match, it probably will come after the Rumble. Like last year, the Sami Zayn babyface turn was a massive deal, and that's why they ended the show with it.
That's right. Yeah, see, so that will tell you, if you don't get the world title or the universal title until the end, we're going to get a Rock return and Roman likely dropping the belt, which is kind of insane that we're both kind of leaning that way after 3.5+ years of Roman Reigns' run that we're saying that, but it is very possible. So, well, I do want to ask one thing too about the women's side of things. We don't talk a whole lot about the women's side of things, and I'm curious as to your top picks, not necessarily your official pick, but really just who you're leaning towards for the Royal Rumble. Do you think Sasha Banks could return, or is it Bayley all the way, or what is your thought on where the women stand with the Royal Rumble?
Well, I think it's going to be Bayley. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that Damage Control has gotten stale. It got interesting with kind of like the progression of kind of like the group and the addition of Asuka and Kairi Sane, but it has since gotten stale. Now I think you're at a point where you really have to start building towards Bayley and Io Sky. And I think people are ready to see a babyface Bayley. And I think SmackDown needs a babyface Bayley. Like, you have a bunch of top heels now on that side with all of Damage Control. And I think Bianca Belair is kind of in no man's land now. I expect her to probably have a match against Jade Cargill at WrestleMania. I think that's where that's going. On the Raw side, I think we already got a clue as to where they're going with Becky and Rhea Ripley. And I think you're going to see Bayley versus Io Sky. And on paper, it's probably kind of a letdown based on the other two major women's matches we're probably going to see at WrestleMania. But I think if they tell the story right and they do the build properly, this could really maybe steal the show, because I think people have been chomping at the bit to cheer for Bayley. And we haven't seen a babyface Bayley in more than 4 years at this point. And I think that her as the current version of herself, but in an endearing way, is something that would be very, very interesting and good for the SmackDown brand. Look, it's going to lack star power because I think Io Sky has struggled to feel legitimate as the women's champion since SummerSlam. But I think Bayley has enough cachet, and a babyface turn would create enough buzz that I think it would get people just involved by, just inherently involved, emotionally involved rather, because of how beloved she is. And I really do think Bayley is beloved. She's never won the Rumble. I believe that, well, save for Sasha Banks, she's the only one of like that 4 horsewomen that hasn't won the Rumble. I think it's time for her to win it.
She's definitely the favorite for me. I think it'll probably come down to Becky and Bayley, because Becky obviously is trying to chase Rhea Ripley, and she'll get there. Some people seem to somehow forget the fact that there are 2 paths to the WrestleMania main event, that if you don't win the Rumble, that person's not going to get a title match. Some people just somehow it goes blank every year. And that's obviously not the case. So I think Becky Lynch will win the Elimination Chamber, which will likely be who is going to face Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, and I think Becky will win it there. She's probably not going to win the Rumble. We will get Becky and Rhea, which in its own right is going to be interesting as hell. From, of course, wrestling quality perspective is going to be, really good. I have no issues, concerns, and I'm really excited for Becky and Rhea, presumably at WrestleMania 40. But I think the most interesting thing about that match is, does the crowd turn on Becky for the love of mommy? I think that to me is a very possible thing. Every time Rhea Ripley comes out, you hear the crowd, just like with Bayley, they're ready to embrace Rhea Ripley, and they have to try to actively, every time she's out there, try to turn the crowd against her, because the crowd is always chanting mommy. They gave her a louder pop than they did for Becky. Becky's promo on Raw, which I have been very critical of.
She sucks, man. I'm sorry. I said this on After Dark. Like, she sucks. She's awful. Like I just called it the resting you-know-what face. Obviously, I said the real word on After Dark, but yeah. Like you said, the puckered lips, it's kind of like a duck face. Remember when duck face was a thing?
That's what it is.
It's like I don't get it. I understand, like, she has the cachet, and her meteoric rise in 2018 and 19 was so, historic in a lot of ways, but she sucks. I'm sorry. Like, Rhea Ripley to me is so above Becky Lynch. Like, I don't know. Like, I get what they're trying to do, like maybe a passing of the torch, but I think they did that last year with Charlotte to Rhea. I don't think you have to go back to the well. Like, I would have much rather seen Rhea versus Bianca Belair. That's me, because I think those are the 2 biggest women's stars that they have. 2 of the biggest stars, period. Like, I would argue that Rhea, if you turned her babyface, you could push her as the face of the company, period. She is that popular. And
Agreed.
Bianca Belair is probably top 10 on both the women and the men's side. So look, I get what they're trying to do. I get most people are down to see this with Becky. I just think that Rhea is so above and beyond Becky, and I think that they've already done the pass of the torch thing.
It's just so funny here to say she sucks.
She does.
As of late, she's been kind of lame. Ever since the Trish Stratus thing was really where it started for me. She's had a little bit of success in NXT and helping the women, and then she came back. And she, honestly, to Becky's credit, I think that her and Nia Jax got me more interested than I thought I would be. Not that it's been, knocking my socks off, but at least I'm like, okay, I'm curious to see how this goes, and I'm interested, and that's a credit to both of those women. But I think that when you look at right now, Becky Lynch, that promo on Raw, which I tore apart, it was just, she has lately, it's not that she's bad on the mic. It's just that she's sitting there. She might as well have a piece of paper in front of her from a writer. She doesn't speak like a normal human being. You heard some of the stuff I talked about that comes to mind is just like, we're 2 women from foreign lands. What the hell are you talking about? Would anyone say that to a person in real life? No, of course not. That is what a scripted promo, the definition of a scripted promo is. And that's the problem we have with a lot of your delivery. And the way that she delivers is sometimes so irritating. And I was totally disconnected from her promo with Rhea on Raw, where Rhea was just calm, cool, collected, and just like, mommy's going to be on top. And, I think Rhea did a much better job. She has a much more relaxed demeanor, a much more organic connection with the crowd right now. And I had somebody on the show last night, Amanda from the UK, and she was saying how it feels like right now the connection that the people have with Rhea is the way the connection with the crowd had with Becky was back in 2018 or whatever it was before the SummerSlam turn, where the fans were just like, they were ready. And it feels like they're ready for Rhea, and they're kind of over the whole man gimmick, which has been stale for a very long time now.
Big time.
Just like, pun intended, right?
Yeah.
I just don't. You're right. Rhea Ripley is so big. She could be the face of the company, period, not just for the women.
No, 100%. Like, I don't even think it's debatable at this point. And to be honest, I think that you could even have that with Bianca, but creative has made Bianca feel stale. And I know that they're trying to keep those two away. One's the face of one brand, one's the face of the other. Maybe they're trying to look for, like, build it up for more and more and more, like for a bigger Mania. But, like, I don't understand how these two haven't collided yet. Like, for me, I would much rather see Bianca versus Rhea. And I understand you kind of spread the wealth. You could do Bianca versus Jade Cargill. I get it. But, like, for you, do you not think that Bianca versus Rhea built properly could main event WrestleMania, period?
Well, I was hoping they would do it last year. I mean, they could have, and they chose not to. I mean, so I saw them compete, and what really opened my eyes, it was 2 Rumbles ago when they were the final 2. And they ended up finishing the match together, and it blew the men's Royal Rumble away. I thought they work so well together. And even if you go back to the NXT, I've seen some of their NXT work. They've just got a great chemistry together. And I'm sure now that they're even more polished and more experienced a few years later, it's going to be even better. It's kind of weird. And I know they always have to have, as Vince used to always say, you have to have an ace in your pocket. I understand that. But right now, these two women, if they collided, it would feel like a mega match. And they teased it, if you remember, on the Raw after WrestleMania last year.
Yeah, when they were both champions.
Yeah, they were both champion, and that was really the only notable thing that happened on the Raw after WrestleMania last year, which was like a big womp of a show in my mind. But I think that was a teaser to, this is where they're going next year. And here we are, and it doesn't even look like it's on the table. So I don't think that's going to happen. It looks like Becky and Rhea, and I think the crowd is going to turn on Becky. And I mean, no matter what they do, they can try to have Rhea Ripley come out there every week and talk about how awful every single town is and how selfish she is. No one's going to give a damn. Everyone's on board with the mommy train right now, and I think they're off of the man train. I'm very curious to see. Do you think that's going to happen though? When you hear the crowd at WrestleMania 40 and you see Becky in one corner, you see Rhea in the other, do you think it's going to be even close when it comes to support from the crowd?
Well, Becky does seem to have a very loyal fan base. I will say that. I don't know if she'll get booed necessarily. Like, she doesn't seem to attract like that magnetic like hate or resentment like Charlotte does. But like, I just feel like it might be like no boos for Becky, like just no reaction, or light cheers and an overwhelmingly positive reaction for Rhea, because I just don't know why they're doing this. And like you said, like, you always want to have that ace in your pocket, but like, look at like how long that they've kicked the can down the road with like a Roman versus Seth match. You've never seen any of the two Shield. Okay, forget about Dean Ambrose / John Moxley, but you've never seen Roman versus Seth at WrestleMania. You've never done that. And I cannot believe after the last 10 years, you will be able to say, we've never done Roman versus Seth at WrestleMania. And I feel like Bianca versus Rhea is a similar thing. Like, this is the second consecutive WrestleMania that you're punting on this. And I get it. Rhea's like, 25, 26 years old. I don't really know how old Bianca is, but I can't imagine she's much older than that. Like, you are punting on two women who are in their prime, two of the best athletes, period, in the company. And you're wasting chances. You're wasting a chance to really build a trilogy, kind of like what we saw with Rock and Austin, or obviously not the same kind of age bracket, but Roman versus Brock. And I really don't get it. Like, these are the two of the best wrestlers in the company on the men and women's side.
They really are. They are by far, I think, some of the best women's wrestlers. And of course, everyone's got their preferences, but I think they've got a perfect combination of strength, agility, and speed and presence. They both have it, and they work very similarly when it comes to that. They're both extremely talented. They both now really understand their characters. They don't feel like they're kind of finding their footing. They know who they are. They are ready to face one another. And, I hope something doesn't happen where one of them has a devastating injury and now we can't get to the match and like this and that. I'm not saying it's got to be now or never, but right now, WrestleMania 40, it's a perfect opportunity. It's a way bigger match than Becky and Rhea.
Yeah,
Bianca
I don't
and
get
Rhea,
it.
It's not even close. But I understand we have a whole lot of Becky fans that listen to this, and I understand why. And she did she was the first woman to be main eventing WrestleMania. Yeah, there was Charlotte thrown in there too by force, but we had her really be the first established WWE women's wrestler to be in the main event of WrestleMania. So, she did have some hell of accomplishments, and she does deserve a lot of credit for what she did in the past. But at this point, she needs to, I don't even know what the solution is for Becky. I don't know if it's to turn her back heel. That's, I guess, kind of one of my final closing questions to you is like, what do you do with Becky then? Like, what would you do with her to kind of revive her?
I would make her work with younger talent, to be honest with you. Like, now that I thought of it, like, I think her versus Jade Cargill would be much better, to be honest with you, because that is someone that you could play like the pass of the torch thing with. They're still trying to position her as like an up and comer, I feel like, but I really don't think that she's there. Like, I think her best years are behind her as the face of the company on the women's side. I really don't think that she has many more significant title reigns left, and that's nothing to do with her. She's been around for a long time, but you have Rhea, you have Bianca, you have Io Sky, you have Jade Cargill, what they're going to do with her. Like, you have some significant women coming up the ranks, and I think she's had her time in the sun. Like, she held that women's championship for a long time upon her return. So I think the best thing for Becky is to kind of enhance some of the younger talent. Somewhat similar to what she did with Nia Jax. Obviously, Nia Jax isn't younger. They're just trying to establish her as a significant monster heel in the women's division. But I think that putting her up against some younger talent, what I would do is Jade Cargill would stand to benefit her and the company a lot more than trying to pose her as a significant threat against Rhea Ripley.
Well, one final question, and I'm not trying. I know we only got a few minutes, so I'm just going to ask you to be brief, which is going to be really difficult with this question. Brock Lesnar and Gunther. We all believe it's going to happen. All the big websites believe it's going to happen. It's just kind of like where we've all landed, and it makes sense. Brock Lesnar is probably going to be a surprise entrant in the Rumble, which is great. Because Gunther already declared himself for the Rumble, so no Intercontinental Championship at the Rumble, which is fine. But my question to you is, this match is probably going to happen, but do you keep the Intercontinental Championship on Gunther and actually have Brock compete for the Intercontinental Championship, which isn't actually the craziest thing in the world, even though you look at it and go, no chance Brock Lesnar's winning. But you also look at this and say, even without the championship, Brock Lesnar's probably not winning. So I don't know how much of effect that really has on it. But what would you do with Gunther and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania? Do you keep the belt on Gunther, or do you actually take it off of him and have someone else compete for it?
I would take it off of him, honestly, because that match doesn't need the belt with Brock. And I think Brock's thing has kind of been like a guy that never challenged for any title other than the world title. Like, because of his legitimate fighting background in UFC, like, I think that it's kind of cool that he's the guy that literally came in and he only went for the top prize. He's a prize fighter, and he didn't waste his time with tag or mid-card titles. So I would have Gunther drop it. I think Jey Uso is the perfect guy to have him drop it too. And then you could have maybe Jey Uso defend in a triple threat against Jimmy and Solo in an inter-promotional match at WrestleMania, something like that, and make that title feel more significant. But I wouldn't want the Intercontinental Championship on the line with Brock and Gunther.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I probably wouldn't either, but it's also, I wouldn't be super angry. Like, I would be
No,
more
for sure
annoyed with The Rock having a championship match than I would with Brock Lesnar, because it's just a different dynamic. The Rock and Roman has been something we've been waiting for 10 years at this point. So yeah, I mean, I would agree, but I wouldn't lose my mind if the Intercontinental Championship's on the line. But I also think that, like you said, Jey Uso and others would probably miss out on that opportunity to compete for it at WrestleMania and would be buried in a match with Brock. So yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, I'm already looking forward. I can see the standoff right now. I can see them eliminating one another, whatever the case. And then we're off to the races for another 6 to 8 weeks with them. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And well, of course, we'll get no explanation as to why Brock was attacked. Yeah, it's just the way it is with Brock. But all right. Well, anything else that you wanted to discuss or state before we wrap it up here?
No, I think we covered a lot here. I mean, we missed a lot of time because our schedules conflict and you go on vacation, but I feel like we really hammered a lot out here, and I'm excited to talk next week post WrestleMania. Or post Royal Rumble, sorry.
Well, it's going to feel like WrestleMania.
Exactly.
It's going to feel like it. I can tell you that after probably a Rock return and maybe a Roman dropping the belt. There's going to be no shortage of things next week to talk about. That's for sure. But guys, go check out your latest show and tell everyone what it is on the After Dark show that's available exclusively on Patreon and Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, so it was covering the thought of maybe SmackDown needing 3 hours. And I think after what we saw this past week on SmackDown, there's a justifiable case to be made that it should be 3 hours. And I know it dropped a day later. And as I said on my show, maybe that will happen from time to time, that I will drop it on Saturdays because SmackDown is Friday nights. And with Roman Reigns there, I wanted to see exactly what happened, the fallout from it. So going forward, obviously, it's not a super time-sensitive show. It'll be Fridays or Saturdays, depending on how significant SmackDown is shaping up to be.
Very good. I recommend you guys go check it out. And thanks so much for joining me, man. We will be chatting in 7 days with a lot to say. So you enjoy your night.
Enjoy Rumble, man. Talk soon.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.